This is about defending democracy. This is no longer Democrats versus Republicans. What do you want your kids to believe in? There must be give and take.
This is White Flag with Joe Walsh.
Hey, Joe Walsh, former Congressman Joe Walsh, back with you. This is White Flag with Joe Walsh. Every week I sit down with somebody who may not think like me on an issue. And in this terribly divided country, we try to model how to have respectful conversation. My guest this week is someone I've known since, Paul, did we meet before 1996?
We met in 95 when I was working for Steve Forbes.
Thank you. Paul Miller, that voice you just heard, is a long-time political consultant. He, in fact, managed my very first run for Congress back in 1996. One of the smartest, way back then, Paul, I said, you're one of the smartest young political minds I've ever known. You're one of the smartest political minds I've ever known. I'll make a mention of two other things about Paul before we get into our conversation. You can follow Paul on Twitter at Paulie's Point, Paulies Point, at Paulie's Point. He's a smart follow. You should follow him. He's relaunching shortly, soon, something called the Haim Solomon Center, a media and political consulting firm. Paulie, my friend, welcome.
Thank you, buddy. It's great to be on.
Hey, I wanted to start here, and disagree with me on this if you want. Generally, you and I are kind of identical in our political philosophies. Would that be accurate?
Yeah, I would think that's accurate.
We're both kind of free market, libertarian kind of guys who are hugely pro-Israel.
Yes, that explains us easily and correctly.
You and I are identical generally politically. We're identical on Israel. I think we may disagree on this, and I've got a few areas I want to get into with you. And by the way, for the sake of this discussion, Paul Miller, everybody lives in the great state of Illinois, where I come from. It is a blue state, a Democratic state. By the way, Paulie, when the hell are you getting out of Illinois?
I want to move to Nashville, maybe in about 5-10 years.
It's because you want to live like in red America, don't you?
No, they don't have any state income tax.
Yeah, I know. I know. I was a member of Congress from Illinois. Illinois is a blue state, a Democratic state. Part of what we're going to get into is who Paul might vote for in November. I think it's fair to say that Paul's vote in Illinois really doesn't matter. You either said something or tweeted something.
Okay.
A little bit ago. That I wanted to start with. I think I asked you who you're voting for, Kamala Harris or Trump, and I think you said, probably neither one. You know where I am on that. But then I think you said or wrote somewhere or said, but if Kamala keeps moving more and more anti-Israel, then I will vote for Trump.
Yeah. And that was kind of a premature statement, I think. And here's what I mean by that. Well, okay. The reason being is that I think I already don't think she can get any worse instead of being all out. So the answer to your question, which I know is something that's very rare in all political forums, is actually answering the question. I will not vote for Kamala Harris, no matter what. I do not like Donald Trump. I don't like him on very, very many levels. But I do think that when he was a president before the pandemic, he was a good president. I think you look at the Abraham Accords, this was the closest we had been to peace, world peace, and then in my lifetime. And it was getting better and developing. But again, I think Trump is an asshole. He is an absolute narcissistic child.
Did you, Paul, remind
I probably
me,
would vote for
him in 20? Did you vote for, I don't remember.
No, I didn't vote for either. No, I didn't vote for either in 20. No, I voted for him in 16.
Okay. So, but you could see, and even Paul, for the sake of our conversation right
Mhm.
now, pretend you don't live in Illinois, pretend you live north in the battleground state of Wisconsin.
Mhm.
If your vote mattered and you lived in Wisconsin, as you look at this race right now, who would you vote for, or would you vote for neither one?
No, I'd vote for Trump.
If you lived in, if
I'd
it
vote, excuse
counted.
me, yeah, I'd vote for Trump.
So
Now you're supposed
you
to
don't,
ask me why.
well, I'm about to ask you why. You don't believe he's like I do, like he's an existential threat to our democracy.
No, I don't at all. I don't at all. I think you're. I think if you look at existential threats, of course, there's my English. But if you look at those threats, I think both sides have problems. But I also think it happens all the time. I mean, every election year, someone's screaming, they're a threat to the democracy, threat to democracy. While I think Trump would prefer to have a world where, of course, every decision, everything he believed or decided on became law or fact, I have enough faith in America. I have enough faith in this country that our judiciary system and so forth, the branches of government, would prevent anything that would really be a threat to America for democracy.
Do you, Paulie, think like he's uniquely bad, or do you think he's on the spectrum of just a bad person, but a lot of bad people have been president? Like,
Um,
I think he's uniquely bad.
no, I think he's uniquely narcissistic. And I didn't think that was possible after the likes of Barack Obama and Bill Clinton. But Donald Trump, is it takes it to a level that I've never seen, that I believe is the case. But I don't believe he's deep rooted bad or evil. I don't. I just think he's really narcissistic. He really is. His opinions, he can't be told that he's wrong. Okay, he never can be told he's wrong. And of course, he's politically, when it comes to campaigning, the man is actually, with the exception of holding the rallies, which is always a good thing, I think he's politically inept. Because you know as well as I do that after that first debate, regardless of what the Dems do with switching candidates, the election was handed to him in a plate. It literally was.
He had
And
a
all he
month and a
had to,
half there where everything went right for him.
sure, absolutely. All he had to do was go to the convention, give a speech, talk positive about the country, not mention his opponent much or even at all, but also be kind. Don't don't go back and bring up things in the past that have gotten you to this position where you do have a huge unfavorable rating. Of course, he didn't do that.
Well,
All
Paul,
he
you
had
don't
to
think,
do would be a nice guy, and this election is over with.
but so then my flip would be he's utterly incapable of being a nice guy.
Oh no,
He
I
can't.
wouldn't say he's no. I don't think he's incapable because I think as a person, he's done good things in his life. I mean, you and I could sit down and talk about this forever, but I know stories just within the Jewish community, going back to when he was a young man and going back to when he became wealthy and popular in the '80s. How great him and his family were to the Jewish community. I think and I'm not just saying he was just that to Jewish people. I think in general he has done some wonderful things in his life, but I also think that he does believe the world revolves around him.
It's really interesting the way you put that, my friend. Like, I think you say he thinks the world revolves around him.
I
And
do. I do.
that's a complete narcissist. Like I go, maybe it's nuance, but I go one step further. I say he's incapable of thinking or caring about anyone but himself. Like
No, no, I don't agree with that at all.
you and I would die to defend Israel. I don't think Trump gives a damn about Israel. I just think politically it's convenient for him to do whatever. He doesn't give a damn. He didn't give a damn about the Supreme Court. He just gave it to the Federalist Society and said, put conservative. I don't think he's pro-life, pro-choice. I don't think he could be a Republican, Democrat. I think he could be anything. It's just all about Trump.
Well, I don't think actually his policies or politics identify with a party. I mean, let's face it. Let's remember something to all you Trump fans out there. This is a
Yeah.
guy who had been publicly pro-choice his entire life. Had made many comments supporting gay rights, even gay marriage. Suddenly, there was a political opportunity, and everything's about Trump. I mean, when this guy made the comment about his favorite book being the Bible,
And he
come
could,
on. Yeah, I mean, come on. I mean, let's be honest. Now, I mean, I can go on and on the man's flaws, but
but
I see other flaws that hit more home, the more to the country, more to the planet, as problematic for the other on the other side, the Democratic aisle.
it's interesting, Paul. So you know then, obviously, because you've watched me these last number of years,
Mm,
obviously I've gone in a different direction. I
mm,
believe like he's so much of a threat that I've spent the past 5 years supporting Democrats who I disagree with on the very policies that you and I talk about.
mm-hmm,
But you don't, I guess that's where you and I are different. You don't
mm-hmm.
see this threat to democracy that I think he's lawless. I think he's un-American. I think he thinks he's above the rule of law. I think he would try to serve more than 4 years if he could. I think he'd try to do whatever he could. That scares the shit out of me. But you
Well, you know
you
what?
don't
I
believe,
don't. If that's how you feel, obviously, don't blame you.
but you
I
don't.
just, but I do. Yeah, I just don't take it to those extremes. Um, the man is not going to not have elections be held. In fact, if anything, it's going to be a new challenge for him to anoint his successor. Okay, I think that's something that people that look at him in that extreme as you do realize that there's still more to come. Just because he wouldn't be president anymore, he gets to anoint his successor, and he probably thinks that he can then be like the puppeteer. I don't know. I don't know. But that's
I've
how I do
never
feel
asked
about
you
Trump.
this. I've
Hmm.
never asked you this. When you watched what happened on January 6th, what did you think and feel? I've never asked you that.
I never, I don't think, I remember that Trump also mentioned that he wanted a peacefully demonstration. He used the word in his tweet. Um, so I don't put, I mean, I think a lot of it was gross and obviously disgusting. I do look at it as yes, there was basically, it wasn't an action to overturn the government. I think it was an action to cause some real mayhem and chaos because the people that did break in,
Yeah.
they didn't have goals. They didn't know what their goals were. They
Well,
didn't. They seriously. They didn't know that they weren't. Like they might have enjoyed taking photos, sitting at certain seats, which we
Paulie, they
saw.
wanted to hang Mike Pence. They wanted to
Well, oh
stop
no no no.
Mike Pence from
Oh no
doing
no.
what Mike Pence
I
was
get.
supposed to
No,
do.
you're right. There was a lot of disgusting actors there. There's no doubt about it. But I don't look at it as this great coup that tried to take over the country. That I
Do
don't
you
look at it.
do you think there were people on January 6th who did riot and invade the Capitol to try to stop the transfer,
Oh, I'm
the
sure there were
official
some people like that.
certification that
Oh
day?
no, I'm sure there were some people like that. I'm sure there were some people like that.
So there were
Without a
some
doubt.
people, and many of them were
Oh yeah,
arrested.
yeah. I mean, I think I mean, I couldn't tell you what the mindset was of the majority or the minority either, but I think common sense dictates that we do know there was going to be some people that were like that animate, that I'll use the term crazy. But I think most people who just felt that the election was not basically legal and lawful. I think those were people that weren't there with an agenda of violence. I think they just wanted to continue to be heard. I don't think the majority had a violent agenda. Okay, I mean, if we're really going to look at that stuff, I mean, my gosh, look what we just did experience on our college campuses the past few months. Okay, you want to talk about violent agendas? You want to talk about where Jewish kids were threatened, and
Agreed.
there was and we're talking bodily harm. So what I'm saying is that where I think you see a problem with just Trump and on the right, I think there's threats on both, and I do believe it on the left. It's worse and more dangerous.
So let me ask you this then, and
Hmm.
this is a good. It's that's why I love chatting with you. So Trump is the only president in American history who lost an election and refused to concede.
Yes.
Like I have a problem with that. Trump refuses to accept election results when he loses.
Mm-hmm.
I find that, Paulie, we live in a
Joey, I'll use the
representative.
word. I find it absolutely disgusting too.
Well,
I do,
but
and
beyond this,
I'm not
go
going to
ahead.
morally defend Donald Trump. I think I've made that clear. There's going to be
No, but
people who have watched this
what I'm
and are going to be
saying
pissed at
to
me because
you,
of what
my
I'm
good
saying.
friend, is, to me, that's more serious than Kamala Harris is bad on forgiving student loans. Like, we live in a representative democracy.
Yes.
We have elections every 2 years. This thing called the peaceful transfer of power, it depends upon all of us accepting the will of the people. He's the only one who never has, and he's telling us he's going to do it again. Like, people ask me what I mean by a threat to democracy. Like, to me, Paulie, like, okay, it's Kamala Harris against Donald Trump. I guarantee you, if Kamala Harris loses in November, she will concede and she'll accept the election results and she'll congratulate Trump.
Mm-hmm.
If Trump loses, he won't, and he won't. That's scary, bad stuff. No?
Sure. No, I agree. I'm not going to deny that. I'm not going to deny that at all. But there was something in what you just said that kind of defeats your overall argument. And let me explain what that is.
Hit me, my friend.
You said that he wouldn't concede. And you're right, he didn't. He didn't concede. And I actually don't think he won't again. When it happens again, I don't think he will either. But here's my point. He didn't win. It was a victorious for our democracy, because when he supposedly called or did call, this election commissioner or this attorney general or whatever, governor, they refused him. He was mostly refused. Sure, you had a few, you have a few basically stalwarts here and there, not the best word for it, but what I'm talking about. You had a few people that, of course, were going to go to him to the ends of the earth. But the reality of the matter is that when he went too far, he was basically stopped. He was stopped by America and the system.
Stop there. You make a great point, Paul Miller. Mm-hmm. And that's a point that people need to hear. The system did hold.
Mm-hmm.
Fair, Paul. Now, he got enough people to go in on the fake electors bullshit with him. He got enough secretaries of state to do funny things, but the system generally held.
Yep.
But I guess, so then I respond with this. Okay, and I want to believe the system could hold against them again, but I don't want to elect somebody who would try to overthrow the system. Like Paulie, like he would try again. That's bad. Whether the system holds or not, I don't want to elect somebody who will look at the American people and say, fuck it. If I lose, I'm not going to accept the result. I'll say it's a stolen election.
Scary stuff. Scary stuff. And I am not disagreeing with you. Yeah, I mean,
but it's not enough for you to say, like, Kamala Harris, not good enough on Israel, Donald Trump. Like, you and I feel the same way about Israel.
Okay, but it's not just Israel. I mean, let's be clear to the audience. It's not just Israel. Well, we also feel the same way about America. We really do. We both do love this country. Okay, yes. So we definitely do. We also love our children. Without a doubt, you are a doting father. I've known that for years. And the fact that your kids grew up means that they broke the deal with us that they weren't supposed to grow up.
You are
another story. But my point also, what I'm getting at here is that I'm losing my train of thought a little bit here. But what I am getting at here,
you said it's not just Israel with her.
It's not just Israel. It's America too. But also, there's also all the issues that I don't agree with her basically on anything. A couple of things here and there, but I really don't agree with her on anything. And but I also am not convinced that she's some great human being either. Now, I'm not. I don't know much. I don't know much to go on it. I know that her politics are terrible. I know that when she basically found praise for the campus encampment folks, I was absolutely about to vomit. I mean, to praise people that were utterly anti-Semitic was a shame. I also know that she has a stepdaughter who just raised $7 million for the UN relief workers, or UNRWA, UN relief. associate group. Anyways, that money is just going to go back to Hamas. The woman's daughter just literally raised $7 million for Hamas, and I know people are going to think that's an
She's
extreme
an
statement,
adult, but she's an adult.
but it's reality. It's reality. It's similar. It is, and I'm going to just throw this in there. But when anybody in the Democratic Party thinks that the $6 billion that the Biden administration gave Iran had nothing to do with October 7th,
I'm with you, Pauline.
they're lying to themselves. Okay, so I ask myself, what have these people done to show that they're like wonderful people, wonderful, superhuman being people, and even just decent? And I haven't seen much from her. Well, but I also haven't seen much to say that she's not a decent human being, even though I think some of the things that she says is questionable.
Do you obviously, when I went to Congress, I was very critical of Barack Obama, but I guess I never I think Obama generally is a decent guy. Would you concur with that?
Yes,
good human being?
I would think he's generally a decent guy. I'm getting in trouble for saying that, but I do believe that. But I do believe he himself has a few, we'll just say, prejudices. I won't expand on it.
Would you agree? I would say, even though, again, I disagree with Joe Biden on most policy, I would say he's generally a decent guy. Would you concur with that?
Yeah, I mean, most likely, but I don't. Again, with Biden, I mean, he's lived off the government teat for so long.
Oh, I know.
That alone makes me question how decent he is. I mean, I'm serious. Oh, they call it public service. Well, we know that that's a BS term for, hey, I'm going to suck off the teat of the taxpayer for a long time.
I guess then it's crystallizing here. And I go back to this. You and I are generally identical politically.
Yes.
Israel and beyond, we're identical. I am voting for Kamala Harris like I voted for Joe Biden, even though I disagree with her on most policy, because I consider this guy a unique threat to democracy and the rule of law. And that's more important to me than policy.
Okay. I most likely going to vote for Donald Trump, who I think is an absolute despicable, disgusting human being. And I do. I really do, except for a few good things he might have done in the past. But I definitely do feel that way. But I also know that when it's going to come down to what I think is actually the safety of a capitalistic America, the safety and security of a state of Israel, also helping really combat anti-Semitism in this country. And I'm going to throw it in finally. With everything we just said, it's all secondary. And here's why. Because I'm going to vote for two reasons. I'm going to vote for my two children. Who's going to keep them safe? Who's going to provide that type of security? But who's going to also offer them a prosperous future? That is what I'm going to go for. And Donald Trump may be not the human being you want in the presidency. And Kamala Harris might be Mom of the Year. I don't know. But when it's going to come down to my kids, your stepkids, your grandkids, Joe, I'm going to go with Trump.
Even though, if you felt Trump was a threat to democracy, would you feel differently?
If I really felt he was a threat to democracy,
like if you talk about your two boys, God love you, and you're a great dad.
So if I felt he was
worried about this democracy, because
if I felt he was a true threat to democracy, I would not be voting for president at all, because I think she's a threat to the harm of the Jewish people in the long run. And then, yes, in your world, he would be a threat to America's future. So that would make me an unbelievably depressed human being and sad American.
And if he refuses to accept the results of a loss this November and lies about it and gets his people all worked up again, that's not a threat.
No, I don't, because I believe in the system. I do believe in the system.
You think the system
is strong enough? Yes, I do. I do.
And it doesn't bother you enough, my dear friend, that he'd try to
It
overthrow
bothered
the
it.
system.
I will never be happy about it. I mean, I think I've expressed that I do not find the man. We'll just say I don't find him to be a great humanitarian. Okay, to put it to you lightly. But I also know that I just don't think the system will fail us. I really don't. It's something I believe in the country. I believe in the people, and I also do believe. And I never say anything positive about politicians.
Huh.
I think they would. I think there's maybe a handful here and there that would march along with him. I mean, you're going to have your Marjorie Taylor Greens maybe, but outside of that, they're not going to be going
Paulie, our
for an
Republican
abandonment.
Party, I mean, obviously, I'm no longer a Republican. I'm a
Mm-hmm.
homeless independent. But
Mm-hmm.
tell me what you think of the Republican Party now. To me, it's just it's his party. It's like an authoritarian kind of a cult. It's his thing.
Well, I think it's the problem I think there is definitely aspects that you're correct. There's no doubt about it. Um, but I also look at that at least with McConnell in the Senate as weak leadership. A guy himself who really should be stepping down. I think his mental acuity is problematic as well. Um, but I don't think they cave as much as you think as concerning as I should say as you feel. But yeah, I mean, if there had to be one person who's the head of the party, it's obviously Donald Trump. There's no doubt about it.
It,
Um,
do you
but
like where the part?
it's not the party of Reagan. Let's be clear. The Republican Party has abandoned the principles of Ronald Reagan. Let's
Oh,
be clear.
completely. Now, does that bother you?
Oh, absolutely.
I
See,
mean, just yeah,
Joe, I don't consider myself a Republican.
I know,
Okay.
I know.
Now, am I going to vote Democrat at all this election? Yeah, there's actually, even on my Facebook page, there's a guy running for judge I've endorsed, and there are a couple others that I probably will vote for. But most of my ballot, yes, is going to be Republican. I definitely lean that way. Um,
Is there a
but
moderate? Is there a moderate Democrat that you could vote for president running against Trump? Like, if you felt like there was a moderate centrist pro-Israel Democrat
mhm.
against Trump, is that something you'd think about?
Yeah, his name is Manchin,
Who's
who's no
so
longer there.
yeah, so a guy like Joe Manchin in your
Yeah, a
mind,
guy
that
like
would
Joe
you'd think
Manchin.
about it.
Yeah, I mean, a guy like Joe Manchin. Um, yeah, there's definitely that would be the
What if
case.
Kamala picks Josh Shapiro to be her VP?
Well, you know what? That's going to be fascinating.
Yeah,
From a political perspective, that's going to be fascinating. Um, I did not, and of course, earlier today, just a few hours ago, I saw a story that there is a big leftist progressive campaign against him,
yeah,
which we knew was happening. But apparently, they call him Genocide Josh.
yeah.
And now and I don't know how many more examples anybody needs that as a Jew that I would be concerned about the Democratic Party. You know, Joe, we talked about whether someone's a Republican or Democrat or not. You and I are two people with no real party home.
None.
Obviously, I tend to go right now. You tend to go at least the party with a Democrat. I'm not going to say you politically lean left. I don't think that's the case.
No, I'm just doing that to stop Trump. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. But anyways,
What?
but my point being is that um was my train of thought here again.
It's late. Well, Paulie, it's late.
Oh yeah, I've been up since 7 this morning. But that's okay. That's okay. No. But what I was saying is that obviously Manchin, the Shapiro thing would be great. I mean, I actually like him. I actually like him a lot. And I'll tell you what he does do is, and yes, I guess I would consider voting him for president, is something that's close and dear to both our hearts.
Huh.
School choice.
He's a school choice guy.
He's a school choice guy. He's
Democrat originally.
pro-Israel, Democrat moderate. Yes, I could see myself voting for him. I easily could.
So you could see voting for a moderate Democrat
Sure.
against Trump if you felt like this moderate Democrat wasn't going to ruin your kids' country.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, Joe, I really think that is what it should come down to every American is, and I know, unfortunately, and I'll tell you, you know this as well as I do, that 30
Huh.
years ago, if you would have heard me say this, you would have laughed. But I think there is a family values problem in this country.
Oh
Okay.
yeah,
And
sure.
I think we all, as parents, should want to consider what's going to be best for their children. Now, this is coming from, and I'm going to say this and get in trouble, but this is coming from a Jew from Skokie, Illinois originally. And let's face it, Jews aren't famous for voting their best interests. So I'm just going to say that. But you
So
know what? This one does when it comes to my children. I am a Jew. I am a father. I'm a husband. I'm an American before I am anything else. And that includes being whatever would be a Republican or a Democrat. And you know as well as I do that I actually am not big fan of people who identify with either because I'm not voting for a letter. I want to vote for a person and I want to vote for their policies. Unfortunately, this election cycle with presidency, I got a person I'm not fond of. The other one I don't think is as despicable, but her policies are atrocious. So talk about, being caught between a rock and a hard place.
yeah, no, that's the difference, Paulie. You've got a person who you think's horrible. You just don't think he's the threat to or even if you thought he were the threat, you think the system will restrain him.
Yes.
Whereas I will say, even just someone who would try to overthrow our democracy should be disqualified.
Hmm.
Um, on Kamala and Israel, again, she's not where you and I are on Israel.
Hmm.
My thinking is, like on most of her positions, Paul, she's
Hmm.
going to moderate and she's going to realize that she's got to be more pro-Israel to get elected and be president in this country, because this country is still a pro-Israel country. So I feel like you talk about how the system will control or will restrain Trump. I think like the system will keep Kamala Harris in between the 40-yard lines where she's got to be generally pretty pro-Israel.
Um,
We can't,
I
Paulie,
think
you and
what
I
she'll do
cannot
is
have an anti-Israel president.
no, but
That'll
here's
never
the thing.
happen.
But here's the thing. I think what she's going to do is her handlers are going to get her to say the right things in public. See, this is a different election because here's the problem. The Democrats need to find a way to appeal to 100,000 Muslims in Michigan. So the language becomes very, very, very interesting of how it's done.
Well, support for Israel it divides the Democratic coalition clearly,
Yes,
because it's
yes.
not as pro-Israel a party.
But your general election voters right now, they have to ask themselves, when it comes to an issue like Israel, while there's not a lot of independent Jews, there are a growing amount, and a lot of them do make donations to campaigns.
I
How
think
do we
she'll
make sure we're
moderate.
saying
Do
that?
you think she'll moderate toward Israel? I think she will.
No, well,
Politically, I think
now
she
when
will.
she's elected, she's going to do what Barack Obama did. She's going to say the right things, get elected. Um, Barack Obama was so persuasive that I'm not going to mention names, but we'll just say that the head of APAC at the time went to such bat for him. Okay, you know what I'm talking about.
I know.
And basically, whether he likes it or not, he's a pariah. Okay, and that's because Barack Obama said the right things. He knew the community, and he knew how far he could stake it to make sure that if you live in the Chicagoland area, the Jews in Skokie and Evanston still voted for you.
Do you like even Obama, Paul, in our lifetime? Like, I think every American president is generally in the two-state solution. Israel's got to be safe and secure. The Palestinian people need a state. Generally, every president falls within those
Those are
guidelines, don't
those
you
are
think?
those are the talking points.
Oh,
Those are
but
except really for Trump in a way, who obviously did go more Israel, but we won't have to get into that.
yeah,
My point being is that yeah, when it comes to the talking points, yes, you're right.
don't you think is there a president that generally hasn't like governed that way? Like I think, Paul, if you had a president of America who didn't do the whole two-state thing and both
Mm.
states need to be secure, and I if I think they'd have a hard time governing or getting reelected because.
Well, I don't think they would have a hard time getting reelected in that regards. I think, no, I don't think they have trouble getting reelected. What
Like,
I
do you
do
think
believe
Obama
is,
was anti-Israel?
I think, yeah, during his presidency, he gave them just enough. He
I
gave them
think that's
just enough.
fair. That's fair.
He gave them just enough. The nuclear deal with Iran was horrible. Basically, you said we're going to give you, we're going to let you get the bomb, but you got to wait longer. Okay, that's not a deal.
Biden's been way better, Paulie.
Biden's definitely
Right?
he's been
Yes.
better than Obama.
Yes.
Um,
And generally,
he's
don't you and I haven't talked a lot about this. Generally, since October 7th, and again, Joe Biden hasn't governed like you or I would
sure.
govern if we were in the White House with Israel. But generally, I think Biden generally has done pretty damn good. I've been disappointed a lot, but he's done pretty damn good standing with Israel. Would you
I
say
say
that's?
he's done a little better than okay.
God, you're a tough
No, but I mean,
SOB.
listen, he says the right things. He's shown the right support. There were some issues with, I think, some weapons that were supposed to be released. There were some funding issues, but also I think some of the rhetoric got a little bad at the as well. Um, they started dropping the rhetoric about that the civilian life really does fall on Hamas.
Yeah.
That was never even really much apparent. And then the other thing is that they started, I think, believing too many of the reports, which we know that every time Israel kills a Hamas terrorist, the Palestinian numbers are including that. Okay, but the victims there are the children, and again, just like Golda Meir said, that not until the Arabs love their children more than they hate us,
Yeah.
will we have peace.
So before we
That
get to
was
my
her word.
and I love that
Mhm.
woman. Before we get to my last question with you, just on this Kamala Harris in Israel,
Mhm.
just tell me if you agree or disagree. I think that she's been, to balance Biden, she's kind of been more the pro-Palestinian voice since October 7th. I think she's assumed that role because Biden led more pro-Israel. I think as president, I think she'll be more moderate and more pro-Israel than you and I think. But give me
No,
your 30 seconds on that.
I don't
You
think there
go.
was ever. I don't think there was ever some type of meeting where they were saying, "Let's have a balancing act." I don't think that happened.
I think
I
she
think
played that role.
yeah, but I don't think that's the case. I think, listen, her record in the Senate showed issues too. Okay, Kamala Harris, yes, she has a Jewish husband.
Kamala, don't
Kamala,
you be
Kamala,
Trump. Don't you
Kamala.
do what Trump does.
Is
Kamala.
that, you know what? I have to admit, I don't necessarily say, I tend to
Mamala.
like to say things like Madam Vice President.
Kamala.
Okay. Well, okay, Kamala. Fine. Whatever. However, Mr. Trump is not pronouncing it. Okay, is that good? Is that what you prefer me to say? My
But he's
point
a
being
dick
is that I
because
think,
Paulie, he does that on purpose. You
oh,
don't.
sure he does. I know that. I'm not disagreeing with that. I think after this is hung up, you're going to text me and say, "I wish you were more anti-Trump."
Well, no, how I'm going
You
to, because I want to ask you another question on this. Forget about Israel for a minute. Paul Miller, you are an all-star dad. You have two wonderful boys. You're one of the best fathers I know. Donald Trump is everything you teach your boys not to be. How the fuck can you vote for that? He's everything you
very
teach your
simple,
boys not to
because
be.
as a father who is, hopefully my boys will agree, participates in their life, I don't ask them to look at the president of the United States to idolize. That's the simple truth. I don't ask them to look at presidents. I don't ask them to look at politicians, celebrities. I hope mom and dad are people they can look up to, and there's a few people out there that I think are real mensches. So America has two pride and joys right now. Do you know what they are, or who
What?
they are?
Who?
Dolly Parton.
Taylor Swift.
No,
Dolly Parton. Who?
Shaquille O'Neal.
Except I got okay, but I'm going to
You're
beg to
talking
differ.
about, in my opinion, you're talking about two people, excuse me, that are just genuinely so decent and are so grounded and give back so much. That's who you maybe could say to your children, I hope I've been a good example. but these are other people you can look
Okay.
at.
Okay.
Okay.
I'll give you Dolly Parton. I always thought Shaq, but he screwed up, Paulie, because I love Caitlin Clark, and Shaq believes Angel Reese should be the Rookie of the Year, so I can't go there. I will
Ugh.
not. I will not go there, Paulie. I will not go there. you, that's so funny. Hey, last thing. You and I've known each other forever,
Mhm.
and you've worked with me politically forever.
Mhm.
You've seen this bizarro, weird, unique political journey I've been on for the last 12 years, moving
Sure.
from Tea Party congressman to right wing radio media guy to then very public never Trumper. And then I
Mm,
ran. You're a friend. You're also a
mm.
political consultant. Have I done anything that's disappointed or angered you in this political journey I've been on the last 5 or 6 years? Like
Anchored
if
or
you were
disappointed?
advising me, where did
Yes.
Joey fuck up?
Well, first of all, professionally,
Well, I killed
um,
myself.
I don't. Well, no, no,
I
no.
did.
I don't. Well, politically, maybe so. Politically, sure.
I could never get elected as a
Professionally,
Republican again.
no. And you probably couldn't get elected as a Democrat easy.
No.
I mean, your social views would kill you on that one too. But here's the thing. I think you've done really well for yourself in the sense that, hey, besides the spots on CNN and MSNBC,
I don't get paid for
and
those.
and what? Oh, okay.
I don't get paid for
I
those.
know. Oh, I know you don't. Believe me, I know
No.
you don't. Believe me, I've done enough radio shows. Hint, hint. That I know not to get paid on those. But also, you've established a unique voice. Do I agree with it? No, I don't. Um, there, and I'll tell you now that, and I did say to you briefly this. I'd rather have you. I think you could do much more coming off the anti-Trump pedestal and trying to bring America back together, which I think I know you've started.
Yeah.
It's something you do more than dabble in.
Yeah.
Create the conversation.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think if I think you would agree with me. The piece that I wrote a couple weeks back for the New York Daily News after the assassination attempt, I cited the importance of bringing people back together. And then I mentioned things.
And Paulie, by the way, I read
Flawed?
that piece for
Okay.
everybody listening to us. This country is dangerously divided.
Yeah.
Who's to blame for this dangerous divide in your mind?
Oh my gosh. I think it has to do with the extremes on both sides gaining more power than we want to admit. The other thing which no one talks about is, and I criticize all the time and get a lot of flack for, is we have a real problem with primary voting in this country.
Yeah.
Because the extremes or the fringes or the far reaches of the parties are the ones coming out to vote. Independents are not voting in primaries. And we need that independent voice out
What's
there.
the answer to that?
If you would have told me 5 years ago that I think we need a different voting model, I would have told you to go, to jump in a lake. But I actually think we do need some type of voting model that's changed. I know there's a couple out there. I've discussed some with some friends. I don't believe in that we can have a third party come to power because the way our republic was formed, the founding fathers never really made it for a third party to come. That's just why it's never happened. That's why an idea of an independent or Ross Perot is going to do the best ever of probably a third party
Yeah,
candidate.
but Paulie, I'll tell you what, Paulie, if the Republican Party continues down this road of being a Trumpy kind of a MAGA authoritarian party, you got a lot of center right people who don't have a home right now. I mean,
Now,
a
let me
lot.
ask you a question. What about the people in the center left who don't believe that men should be in women's bathrooms or women's sports? Okay, who also believed that unless you were born with a vagina, you can't give birth. Okay, because as Bill Maher, who I know you know well,
Yeah.
has said and points out now almost every week, the woke shit has gotten really crazy. So yes, you might have a growing number of more people that are looking for might be looking for a party. But the question is I don't know if those folks have the political passion enough,
And
and
or
I
money.
don't
It's
know
going
if
to take
there's, and
money.
I
And
don't,
take
and I
money.
think right now, well, I think you also have a lot of people that they just identify with the D or the R. They don't even really know what the parties are standing for or fighting for. I mean, look at Chicago, for the love of God. Chicago has been Democratic ruled for 70 years, and the people who have caused the problem are getting reelected every election cycle by the people who are complaining that there's too many problems.
One party rule sucks no matter what. Yeah.
Exactly. That's exactly right.
And that's why
Um,
more and more Americans are identifying as independents.
sure. But is there enough? I don't know. But, I know there is this, maybe you remember the title of it. I don't.
Huh.
There is an idea out there that basically does have it where multiple candidates run and you start
Oh, yeah,
working
yeah,
out.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Ranked choice voting. There's ranked choice voting. There's open primaries.
Yes.
There's
Yes.
top two. Like you don't run like California does that, Paul, where they don't
Yes.
run as
Yes.
Republicans or Democrats. The top two face each other in the general,
Yes,
no matter what party
exactly,
they are.
exactly.
Yeah,
So maybe something like that
yeah.
until someone gets 50%, or actually, I'd like to say 55. Let's have it a little bit more, to be honest with you. Um, Maybe we need to really seriously explore that. But tell me, who is going to want to take a chance and give up on their cushy elected jobs in their gerrymandered congressional districts?
No. Yeah,
I mean, that's another thing you and I go back to the 90s for is term limits.
yeah.
Okay, are you still with me on term
Oh
limits?
my God, that was the first bill I introduced in Congress.
Yes,
Totally.
exactly. So this notion that, oh, he was a 40-year public servant. Yeah, again, he lived off the government teat. Okay, why is it? And I'm not just singling out Joe Biden, but Joe Biden's been in public office for 50 years and he's a multimillionaire. How the hell did that happen?
Well, it's easy to happen because you make relationships and blah 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 blah
Exactly.
blah. They all do it. Yeah. Um.
Which goes back to how much worse is Trump than than almost everybody else.
Well, Paul, then
I
then
had to throw
by the
that
way, no,
in.
this is why I love you because you're damn good at this, and that's great. And the my only answer is he is worse than anybody else because even Joe Biden, if Joe Biden lost an election, Joe Biden would put the country first. He'd participate in that beautiful thing called the peaceful transfer of power,
I
and
agree with
he'd
that. He would.
concede. Even Biden would.
He
I
would.
don't know of anybody else who wouldn't except for Trump. And to
Mhm.
me, that's a unique threat because, Paul, I know we're not Republicans, but my God, most of the Republican Party still believes Trump won in 2020. They think our elections are rigged and stolen. This is scary shit. And that's all because Trump started this. I'll give you the final word, you big jerk.
I don't disagree with your concerns about the election. Well, what we said about that. But again, like I said, I like. I still believe in America, and I believe in the system, and I believe it will stop any type of tyranny that you're so afraid of. I just don't think it's there. I think I look
But I
at
don't
though.
want to elect someone who wants to be a tyrant.
I understand that. And I get that.
Paulie,
But I also don't want to elect someone who I do believe is going to help create a future that's going to be more dangerous for my children.
oh, she might raise your taxes a little bit, maybe do more student loan bullshit
No, Joey, you
forgiveness.
know
Oh,
exactly what I'm getting at.
it's not
You know what I'm
democracy.
getting at.
It's not
I'm worried. I'm
preservation
worried
of
about
democracy.
anti-Semitism. I'm worried about the future of the Jewish people. Okay, I'm a Jew. I don't hide from that. I'm proud of it. I'm an American. I'm a dad. This is what's priority to me. And yes, and if I really felt he was a threat to the democracy,
You couldn't vote for him.
I couldn't vote for him, no, but I just don't see it that way.
Hey, let me ask you last question, Paul.
Sure, hit me.
One more try. Is there anything she could do? I mean, think outside the box where you'd say, fuck, damn it, I'm gonna vote for her.
Well,
Like
overnight she'd be
living
in a government free market conservative.
like that.
Yeah, like that.
By the way, Trump's not a free market conservative.
No,
Boom, I got the last shot in.
No, he's not. You're right. I said that. He's a man without a party.
Well, he's also he's a fucking dictator wannabe. I love Paul.
I think they all are, and you know what?
Oh,
I'm gonna quote you on something you told me at breakfast once, not long, about 10 years ago, probably.
What did I say?
Everybody who runs for office, Senate, Congress,
yeah,
wants to be president at some point.
Totally.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with that.
Mm-hmm.
But not everybody who wants to be president wants to be a fucking dictator. I love Paul Miller, and everybody follow Paul on Twitter at Paulie's Point, Paulies Point, at Paulie's Point. I'll help promote it, Paulie, when you got the Haim Solomon Center back up and doing something. Beautiful. I will help you promote. Paul Miller and I are identical politically, and it just, Paulie, I'll give you the final word. These are fascinating times because you and I are like brothers politically, and yet we're going to go to the booth in November and vote for two different people. I find that fascinating.
You know what we both have in common, Joe?
Huh?
We're both scared to death.
It's a good note to end on because you're right. We both feel that way. Love you, brother.
Love you, baby.
Thank you for listening. Remember to listen, share, and follow White Flag with Joe Walsh on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and everywhere great podcasts are found. And be sure to leave a 5-star review. This has been White Flag with Joe Walsh.